Horizons, where transformation meets truth. I'm your host, Saima, and today's guest is Coach Chris Malgeri, a fitness powerhouse, martial artist, and mindset strategist who's on a mission to help people rise into their highest potential. Chris doesn't just coach bodies, he trains souls. He teaches us that strength is sacred and healing starts from the inside out. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure to have you here, Chris. So, Chris, you combine martial arts mindset and wellness in such a unique way. So, can you share that what sparked this integrative path for you?
Well, I think martial arts inherently has it requires reflection. If you're going to commit to a life of training, right? You have to, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of it? It's easy to see the physical benefits, but over a lifetime, we have to ask, what are we doing this for? Right. So it requires, on one sense, to have a mindset of longevity. I'm going to do this to improve my life over time. Sometimes it's just I really enjoy the practice. Sometimes there may be something deeper. If you're a competitor, you need to have a strong mindset to be able to get up every day, do your practices, and be able to face the fears that come with stepping on the mat and competing against somebody. If you are, um, if you're in an environment where perhaps it's not the best environment, right? And you need to take martial arts because perhaps there are threats where you live. Maybe it's not the safest neighborhood. And you have to have a mindset that says, I'm going to be attentive to my surroundings. I'm going to act like a predator, not prey. I'm going to pay attention to where I'm at, and I'm going to commit to the training to keep myself and my family safe, right? So, martial arts offers a variety of vantage points where the physical part is important, of course, but how you look at how martial arts affects your life is equally as important, right? If you've lived long enough, you set yourself up for with some security, some safety. You live in a place that's nice enough where you're not worried about getting mugged or attacked every day, and you don't live in an environment where, or perhaps you're not law enforcement or military or something like this. Then you might have to look a little bit differently. Maybe, perhaps one might say more deeply. And we're committing to the practice because at the end of the day, we want to know more about ourselves. We want to learn about what makes us tick, so to speak, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And the act of a daily commitment to practice can really open up a lot of self reflection and self knowledge, right? The more I know about myself, the more deeply and the more, let's call it, passionately I can live my life.
Mm, that was such a thoughtful and grounding insight. Like hearing how your journey unfolded, how martial arts became like more than just physical discipline and evolved into a framework for mindset and wellness really highlights the depth behind your work, Chris.
It's important because we need to have a mindset that takes us on a journey towards the goal, right? So if we're thinking about things as, hey, I go to martial arts once or twice a week as a hobby, that may not get us towards a goal of improving our discipline, our respect, our commitment to what we're doing. We really want to frame what we're doing, and the mindset is really everything. If you don't have a mindset of growth, of sustainability, of passion for what you do, it will be hard to maintain, right? So if you get up and you enjoy the practice every day, you're committed to it, it's a lot easier to stay the path and then achieve the desired results, right? I like to think of
Mhm.
martial arts as my golden time, right? I have requirements every day, right? I take care of my children, I take care of my wife. We have to earn so much money to facilitate a lifestyle, et cetera, et cetera. But martial arts is not a requirement. for just sustainability and for me to live. Martial arts is something I get to do to enhance my life, and therefore I treat it with that kind of focus, that kind of discipline. If somebody is working out, for example, oh, I got to go to the gym and I got to drag myself there, that's kind of a defeatist mindset, right? But if you say, oh, good, I finished my work, now I get to go to the gym, I get to do what I want to do, that is more of an elite mindset, right? Because we're doing is framing and reframing the same activity. That's all we're doing. So if I look at it as a negative, then maybe I won't commit to it as deeply as I can. But if I look at it as a positive and I look at it as something that I was able to carve out that time to do, then I'm going to more passionately and more vigorously go after this practice and therefore get the results of that as well.
Hmm. It's really fascinating that how the very practices meant for combat often teaches the deepest forms of calm and control.
I would agree. I would agree. And part of that is we could call it historical because um, one of the things that martial arts has, in some sense, accomplished, and it seeks to engage everybody, is that the dealing with the fight or flight reflex, right? So, martial arts teaches us to deal with conflict, and it could be somebody yelling in your face, it could be extreme fight, whatever the situation. But the more deeply you practice and the more engaged in your practice, if you can't maintain discipline, if you can't maintain calm in the storm, it doesn't mean you will be fearful should something unfortunately happen, right? But it means that you can maintain a sense of discipline and focus, and you're willing to face the fear and overcome it and do what you want to do, face the fear and do it anyway, as they say. Then martial arts is a really good way to handle that and get that powerful mindset, because it, even though it can be artificial, right? If I'm training somebody on the mat in jujitsu and we're wrestling, there's a time limit. We're in a safe environment. We have a uniform on. Everybody knows what they're doing. But that doesn't mean you don't feel the fear of being embarrassed. You don't feel the fear of losing. You might be fearful of, man, I'm going to get smashed today. But the practice and the practice and the determination to keep coming back and facing that fear and then getting better and better and better is what makes you mentally, physically, and spiritually stronger to be able to handle those pressures, no matter what they are.
Mm, 100%, I agree. Now, when it came to mindset, so how do you reframe that belief and coaching someone who feels stuck?
To reframe a belief, we have to have some mental exercises, right? So if somebody's feeling stuck and saying, I don't know what to do with myself in some kind of situation, the first thing we have to look at is say, much of what we talk about in lifestyle changes and wellness in martial arts, these are all things that we bring to ourselves because we can. Um, the first thing I always consider is that there is time for me in the day to do this. And I'm fortunate. It's not that I don't work hard, it's not that I don't take care of my other responsibilities, but if you have time to feel stuck about, oh, do I go to the gym or do I sit on the couch? That's a luxury. So the first thing we want to realize is if you have time to complain about whether you go to the gym or not, you're a lot more fortunate than many people on the planet, right? Many people on this planet don't even have the thought of exercise or working out because they're too busy simply trying to provide for their family. So I always reframe it to say, if you have in your mind, I'm stuck, I don't know how to work out, that's a good problem. Let's start with saying that's a good thing for your life. You're stuck with high end problems. So now let's figure out what you want to do about that. right? Do you want to fix the diet first? Do you want to fix the exercise first? Do you want to fix the breath work and the mental training? Or do you want a little piece of each of those pies that we can work on consecutively? So we might say, okay, I'm feeling stuck. So I'm going to take some bite sized things and I'm going to fix these first. I'm going to take I mean, on YouTube, you can find thousands of breath work exercises that are follow along. So you can say, I'm going to commit to doing this 3 minute breath work exercise once a day for this week. And you can find there's literally no excuse. You can find thousands of 10-minute workouts on YouTube for free with no effort. And then you say, okay, I'm going to organize this. Now, with a little bit of effort and commitment and investment, you might say, okay, well, now instead of that, I want to go to a gym, I want to go to a martial arts studio, and I want to get a little bit more involved, right? So the first thing to realize is having this problem in the first place, it's a good problem to have. That means you have the time, energy, and perhaps you even have the resources to solve the problem. And then we go about figuring out what's the goal. What are you trying to solve the problem for? Lose weight, get in better shape? Do you want to compete in martial art? Who knows? Whatever the case is. And then what we want to do is anytime you're feeling stuck, remind yourself, and uh, you might find an exercise, find a mental practice where you can bring yourself back to a centered position, right? Um, so you might say, when I feel myself feeling stuck, I'm going to count back in my head 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and remind myself that I'm in a good position to solve my own problems, right? Having the ability to solve our own problems is hugely beneficial. It puts all of the power and opportunity in our own hands, right? I don't have to rely on another person to solve my problems. So, oh man, what am I going to do today? First thing, flip the switch and say, I can figure it out. Second thing is, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you do something. If you have a super busy work day and you missed your workouts and it's just stressful, go for a 10-minute walk. Go on YouTube and find a 10-minute workout followed by a 3-minute breath work session. It's all available to us. I don't really believe there was ever an excuse for us not to. There was always a book. There was always a somebody that could help you if you wanted to get in better shape or if you wanted to work out. But nowadays, there's an app for everything. There is on YouTube, you can find all the information you want, right? So there's no real excuse for us to say, oh, I don't, if I don't feel like it. To me, I don't feel like it. That is the reframe, right? So that requires reframing what we're saying. It's okay. I don't feel like it. Why don't I feel like it? I'm tired, I'm stiff, I'm sore. Okay. But I know that if I do something rather than nothing, I will get that sense of accomplishment and I'll have something to build on from tomorrow. So, worst case scenario, I'm going to go for a walk. At least I got a walk today, right? I'm feeling stuck. I got out of the house. I went for a walk. I got some fresh air. I was able to breathe. I was able to move. Even if you were eating garbage all day and crap, I'm going to have a good dinner with a good salad. I'm going to, whatever it is that you want to eat, right? Even if something was really terrible today, do something positive so that you can build on that for tomorrow, right? Instead of throwing the entire day away and saying, oh, I had a crappy day. I'm going to go eat McDonald's because I had a crappy day. No, no, no. End the day with something positive, and then you can build on that for the next day.
Absolutely. That's such a practical yet powerful approach, Chris. I mean, I love how you break it down into something actionable. Like, so often when someone feels stuck, even, small mental shifts can create real momentum. And the way you guide people to see things differently without like overwhelming them really speaks to your coaching style. And I'm sure that listeners will find this incredibly useful.
I'm glad.
So, like you work with people seeking change. So, what role does self care play in building lasting resilience?
Self care, as I see it, is a process where we can refine it as we go, but it's one of those all encompassing words, right? Self care, we could take broad categories and we could say kind of mind, body, spirit self care. And we can say, what are the activities that we can bring to each of those categories to make ourselves feel more fulfilled, right? Self care could be having morning and nighttime routines. I get up, I follow this routine. This routine gives me certain results, and those results fulfill me in a certain meaningful way. Self care can be a, when it's nighttime, I'm going to follow this bedtime routine where I eat dinner, I go for a walk, I spend time with my family, I do my shower, I do my face routine so I feel good in my skin, and then I do my breath routine to get me to sleep, right? So the more we can find something to make it habitual and make those meaningful habits a part of our day, but be present during those habits, right? So no, I'm not just going through the paces of fine, I'm doing a skincare routine, or I'm doing a nighttime breath routine, or sometimes I'll stretch before I go to bed, whatever that is. But if we can become present, paying attention to the mind, the body, and spirit as we're doing those routines, making them meaningful and making something that we want to do tomorrow. If a lot of times, like we said before, if I think about it, I have to do this, that frames it like a negative. But if I say I get to do this, I'm able to do this, my lifestyle allows for this, we are much more likely to be persistent and keep doing those things for the long haul, right? That's why you can find this again all over YouTube or Instagram. You can find the people who are motivating, who are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old and still transforming their lives. They're still really focused on not the big picture. That should always be in our head somewhere, but focusing in and being attentive to the little activities, the little tasks, the little steps that we go through during the day, that all builds, right? That's going to have that synergistic building effect, right? So instead of thinking, I'm doing my breath work because I was told to, now I get to do my breath work. I get to calm myself. I get to take that sense of calm into my next activity and make that activity better, right? Whatever those activities happen to be. But I think a lot of people follow along with a routine or a program, externalizing it. They think if I just do this, I'll get some results rather than really investing their intention and their commitment to that activity and saying, I'm doing this, I'm enjoying it, I'm feeling myself being present in this activity right now. That can have profound effects on the outcomes, how effective the routines are, how effective the weight loss or gaining muscle mass or getting good at an art or a sport is. It's just how your intention is and how your presence is during those activities.
That's such a great way to put it, Chris. Like it's easy to think of self-care as just a checklist, but you are reminding us it's really about presence and intention and like finding habits that actually mean something. That's where real resilience starts to build, right?
Yes, and then also I think of resilience as self-resilience, right? Because what we're really looking at is, do you want to have to rely on somebody else, or do you want to take care of your own problems? Because if you can take care of your own problems, you're going to be so far ahead of the game, right? If you use your diet, your hydration, a proper diet, good exercise, you're taking command of your health and longevity. you're taking command of that. You're taking um, control in the small activities that you do. You don't necessarily have to rely on the doctors. You don't have to rely on the physiologists. You don't have to rely on the massage therapist, right? You are handling those things so that other people don't have to. And that in and of itself is a much more rewarding experience.
Absolutely, yes. Now, for anyone listening right now, overwhelmed, what's one habit or mindset shift you'd like to recommend to begin the healing journey?
When you're, if we're trying to heal something physically, you
Hmm.
might you might have to pay attention to slowing things down a little bit, taking your time to explore. For example, if you're hurt in some way, explore alternatives to movement, right? So if it's a physical ailment, or if you're saying, I hurt myself or something like that, you may have to find alternative movement paths, right? You might find that, hey, I can't go running right now, so maybe I need to do some seated breath work, or maybe I need to do some rope flow or something a little bit softer, right? If you're mentally just struggling and like, I don't know how to get on this path, and I don't know how to do things, the the small daily steps of saying, okay, I'm getting 5 minutes a day on a treadmill for week one, and then finding that sense of fulfillment in smaller steps versus jumping on the treadmill for an hour, that may be something that a person has to do to rebuild that sense of physical connection, mental connection, so that they can achieve these more challenging activities, right? If you're having a struggle with an activity or people, and or you may have to find a different community for a little bit, right? You might have to find a different activity or something that you can stay moving, something that you can stay connected to, that intrigues you but engages you in a different way, right? um I do a lot of kickboxing, but I broke my toe. So now I can't do that for a while, right? So maybe I need to engage
Hmm.
in some other kind of movements. Maybe I need to engage in some other activities. Um, but the most important thing is, if you're struggling with one thing, don't let everything else fall apart, right? For example, if you're struggling because you're injured or something, don't let your diet go down the toilet because or your breath work or your walk, whatever it is. Don't let everything fall apart because one area of your life was stressful. Maybe work is really, really stressful right now. Don't use that as an excuse to let your diet suffer, right? When one area is kind of depressed, the other areas have to be picked up, right? You have to focus more on the positive sides and stay with those things to make sure you are not letting yourself spiral down a path where now you've got to fix your diet, you've got to fix your exercise, you got to fix your relationships with people because you become so crabby, you don't know how to speak to them, right? So I think that would be small steps, but also don't let every focus on keeping the things that are good stable. Make those the cornerstones of what you're doing. If you have a decent diet, stick with the diet even when things get lousy, because that's going to make you feel better anyway. And that's going to support you while you're going through troubling times, right? And then be perceptive enough in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, and pay attention to what needs adjusting. Do I need to do a little more breathing and meditation because I'm so mentally frazzled? Right? Do I need to go for a little bit longer walks because I need to get more exercise and I need to feel a little bit more connected to my body? Right? These are good questions that, when, if you have a good coach or a good mentor, that you can work through and figure out how you are going to make adjustments, because our paths are never perfect. right? They're winding roads. Sometimes you're walking up a mountain. Sometimes you're trudging through a river, right? Life can get really, really messy, but it's important not to let everything suffer at the same time, right? And the things that are under your control, do the best you can to make sure that they're contributing to the balance, wellness, and positivity of your life while you're figuring out the rest of it.
Hmm. That's such a compassionate and realistic approach. I mean, that kind of flexibility can be the first step back to feeling empowered. So, Coach Malgeri, you reminded us that healing isn't a destination, it's a discipline. And whether through a quiet breath or a powerful punch, we all have the capacity to shift, rise, and transform. So, listeners, take that next step, let your body move, your mind reset, and your spirit lead. The horizon of healing is waiting, and you are already walking towards it.